This show is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
I don't know if you have this feeling, but I constantly find myself daydreaming about finding an expert who can solve a very specific problem in my life. And one specific problem that comes up every year is filing taxes. But luckily, finding someone who can solve that problem is easy with TurboTax. They have dedicated tax experts who are there to help you every step of the way. With TurboTax Expert Full Service, you can match with an expert who will handle your taxes from start to finish, no matter how complex. You can even hand off all your tax stuff within the TurboTax app. And then you can see updates on your expert's progress while you go about your day. You can check exactly where your tax return stands right there on your phone. And then if someone ever says to you, man, I wish there were an expert who could do my taxes for me, you can say, oh, I know someone. Visit turbotax.com to match with your expert today. It's only available with TurboTax Full Service Experts. The real-time updates are only in the iOS mobile app.
Hello, welcome to Geek Warning, the cycling tech-focused podcast from Escape Collective. I'm Dave Rome. Joining me this week, Ronan McLaughlin. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Dave. Back home again here?
Yeah, me too. Although I never left. You went somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you went out. Good to see you home again.
Good. Thank you. Also, Alex Hunt. Welcome back, Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm also back home after a little travel away.
Where did you get to?
Got to the lovely Valencian coastline.
Ooh, okay.
Is that Costa Blanca or Costa Brava or what is it?
I don't know if it is Costa. I think it's maybe too north.
Okay.
I feel like Valencia's the end of that, and I was slightly north of Valencia.
Costa Branca?
Costa, Spain. Costa something.
Costa Coffee.
And yeah, I was there for a bike we're going to talk about, I guess, in a couple of minutes.
One that doesn't cost her too much.
I don't know about that.
All right. Well, this week I got plenty of news to cover. There's been a lot of product launches. So apologies to those that are listening that hate new products, but this episode has a lot of it. We've got some new aero bikes. We've got some new drivetrains. We've got some new affordable bikes. We've got a few quick tech bites. We will finish up with a good thing and, of course, Ask a Wrench for members of Escape Collective.
Probably also worth saying, don't switch off now if you don't like new products or you don't like newsy shows, because we're not planning to just give you the news.
No.
We have a couple of takeaways from the trip that Alex and I were on last week. Separate trips that we were on.
Many opinions. And some of those opinions are related to two new bikes that are being released, which are the Giant Propel and the Merida Reacto, two similar, closely competing brands that have similar, closely competing bikes. So we will get into those, and those bikes are also the reason why this episode you're probably listening to a little bit later than usual. So if you're used to getting the episode at a specific minute in the day, then those bikes are why we're a little bit late this week. All right. And then just a quick note for those on our free feed, just a reminder that members of Escape Collective do get access to the full lengths of these podcasts, including our Ask a Wrench segment. They also get these episodes without ads. So you will be hearing some ads. And if you don't like ads and you do like the full length episodes, then please join Escape Collective. Head to escapecollective.com/geek warning for more information there. All right, on with the show. All right, well, before we get into the really big news, let's cover some of the smaller, quicker things that we've got to talk about. First up, Cervelo have done an update to the Caledonia, really popular endurance road platform from them. Not a big update because the Caledonia is split into two ranges. You've got the Caledonia, and then you've got the Caledonia 5, and the 5 being the higher end, more integrated version. The Caledonia 5, no changes. Rather, they've just updated the standard Caledonia. It's a little bit lighter, got more tire clearance, up to 36 millimeters max or 34 millimeters with fenders. They've optimized the steering geometry around 32 mil tires. There's now a threaded bottom bracket. and it has gone to integrated cable routing, but interestingly, they've kept it outside of the stem, so you can still swap stem lengths and all that without having to disconnect any brake hoses. Looks like a good bike, as always. Been a popular bike for many years, and yeah, US $3,300 is the starting price point for one of those with 105 mechanical, and it goes up from there. Next on the list, OneUp have joined the XC pedal game with yet another brand to do an SPD compatible pedal. Their trail pedals got a little bit of added reception when they came out because they had to do a recall for them because people were getting stuck in them. Since then, the updated version of that, I'd say, has been pretty problem-free. I've used it pretty successfully, really like that trail pedal. And these XC pedals continue a similar theme, like stainless steel hardware, some nice rebuildable features. US $160 for the pair, comparable weight to like a XTR pedal. Their main shtick is that they're the lowest stack height SPD on the market, edging out Alex, your beloved, my beloved Wolf Tooth pedals by 0.8 of a millimeter by my measurements.
Thank
game
goodness.
changing. So yeah, I don't know. It just looks like a decent price point option. These, I'd say, I've been riding them for a couple of months, and they're good. Like, they just feel like a great SPD pedal. Quickly go forgotten. I'd say the one negative I have about them is they're quite wide in the total pedal width. So if you're someone that scrapes like the outer edge of your pedal much in rocky terrain, then these are probably going to prove to be a little bit more rub friendly in that regard, or rub hungry. But otherwise, really interesting pedal. I'll hopefully have a bit of a short review on those in the near future. But for now, check them out.
I'm just really excited about what Wolftooth have done and with OneUp with like rebuildable SPD pedals. I think it's quite nice. Shimano do have such a good reputation for longevity, but it is nice to know that, if anything does happen to the pedal, you're not throwing it in the bin and having to buy again.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real nice feature to see appearing more in the market.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say OneUp, they're probably not quite as rebuildable to the same extent as the Wolftooth. So like the Wolftooth, you really can buy every single individual piece on those. Maybe not economical to build a pedal out of those individual pieces, but it can be done. Whereas OneUp, I mean, they offer like full bushing and bearing kits, and they even give you the tool to get into those pedals for the quick servicing. But like if you did smack the pedal hard enough and you broke a binding plate or something, then you'd probably be up for new pedals. But also knowing their warranty, they'd probably just send you some. So yeah, I don't know. They're slightly different take. Like the Wolftooth obviously as well as like a US assembled, partly US made product. OneUp isn't, and I think that's reflected in the price. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just nice to have these like competitors to XTR pedals that offer some things better, and perhaps maybe you trade off here and there, but choice is a good thing, and these things seem pretty well thought out and have a good level of stability, which is something I know you and I both loved in that Wolftooth. So nice option. Hopefully I can do a bit of a comparison against Wolftooth and XTRs in the near future. The other little bit of news that we've got is some wheels out of Nobl, which is an American wheel company. They're actually somewhat associated with Light Bicycle out of China. They've got some sort of partnerships there in terms of products, so no real surprise where these rims come from. But they've got a new range of mountain bike wheels, and there's one in particular that really stands out. It's called the Ethos SL 180. It's a 29er pair of 29er wheels with 28 spokes front and rear, 30 millimeter internal rim width, and the claimed weight is 993 grams. That is insanely light. So yeah, this Ethos wheel set and every other wheel set in the range, I think there's a total of 6 models. They're all built around bird spokes, optimized around bird spokes, which is something I just wrapped up testing as kind of an individual item and came away quite impressed by the ride quality it offered. And so I have called in a pair of these 993 gram wheels to test to see what they feel like, how they hold up. Yeah, I don't know. Those weights are just so impressive to me. I remember 1,400 grams being an impressively low weight for 29er wheels. So I've clearly been sleeping on that. We're now sub 1,000 grams for a wheel set without a clear weight limit on it. Guess we'll see how it goes. But yes, 29er wheels still being made for all you 32er converts already that don't have a bike yet. All right, Alex, what's the lightest set of mountain bike wheels you've ridden?
Nothing great. I think maybe 1,200 grams for a set.
Yeah, I think that's
can't
where
remember
I'm
which
at.
ones, but
yeah,
I think anything under like 1,100, I just don't even think I've seen in person. And I don't know. I think I would personally prefer to ride them and then find out the weight than know the weight and then go and ride them.
Yeah, I didn't have that luxury given they're like, we've got these 993 gram wheels. Do you want to try some? It's like, oh, can you not tell me the weight? But yeah, it seems like this is becoming an increasingly common thing because Bird last week just came out with a wheel set, not that much more than this, maybe within 50 grams of this, of their own branding and obviously their own spokes and all that. So yeah, it seems like this is becoming a weight target that's quite possible with the non-steel spokes. So perhaps, yeah, not the last of these sub 1,000-gram mountain bike wheels that we've seen. But I'm very eager to try them. Very eager to let a friend who is rougher on wheels than I am try them, see what we can find. So anyway, one for the future. All right, let's get into some bigger stuff. We've got some 11-speed drivetrains this week, and we've got some new bikes. So let's get the drivetrains out of the way. Firstly, we've got MicroShift's Advent MX, which is a new mountain bike group set from the budget-oriented brand MicroShift. And yeah, it's basically a very nice update to the Advent range. They've gone 11-speed. It's now 11 to 50 tooth cassettes. Really well priced. You're basically like looking at about US $230-ish for shifter, rear derailleur, and cassette, which is really high value. And the stuff looks really solid. I think it's nice looking gear. I don't know what else to add on it, but I've used MicroShift in the past and yeah, came away super impressed with it. I think it's often, in performance wise, it's often better than the very cheapest stuff from Shimano and SRAM and comparably priced. So it's one to look out for if you're building up a budget mountain bike, and no doubt if you're shopping for budget mountain bikes, I think you're going to see this MicroShift Advent MX appear more and more. The other one that I have been hands-on with the last few weeks is new Shimano Tiagra 4000 series, which is not confusing at all given it supersedes 4700 series. So somehow we've gone backwards in the numbers. But anyway, it's 11 speed now. It is now disc brake only. And yeah, I guess the main thing to know about it is, despite me thinking it would be a new replacement for anyone with an 11-speed road mechanical bike and offer parts for that, the new parts are not necessarily compatible. They actually use the new pull ratio that's shared with Qs. So yeah, unfortunately, you can't mix and match these derailleurs or shifters with your existing Shimano 11-speed mechanical road components. So like, yeah, if you've got 105, Ultegra, or Durace 11-speed, then these parts may not work. The one thing I did test and the one thing I did cover on Escape is the new 11 to 36 tooth cassette. And I did have some success using that with like a Ultegra long cage derailleur. So check out that article for more details there. But yeah, there are some nice details within that. So, but yeah, it just kind of reminded me that Tiagra is really good. Like, it performs super well. If you're not weight focused and you're not like chasing high performance, latest and greatest, it's actually feels and functions just like sort of Ultegra from a few generations ago. So came away pretty impressed with that stuff. But yeah, another death for the rim brake. All right, I'm going to stop talking now. I've just done a whole monologue of new products. I think it's time to hear from you, Ronan. There was a Cadex wheel that blew up in a race. What happened?
Oh, God. Why do you have to bring that up? Yeah. I think the reason we're going to talk about this isn't necessarily because a wheel failed, but because of all the clickbait bullshit that's followed it. To be blunt about it, I mean, it seems like what happened is Amore Capio, who rides for Jaco Alula, suffered, according to KDX anyway, suffered a puncture in Saturday's Unlock Het Newsblad after hitting a hole or something on the road. And then because his team car was so far behind, he made the decision to keep riding that wheel over a cobbled sector, which in turn then effectively destroyed the wheel. And so it wasn't caught on TV footage or on camera, but it was a photographer caught the sort of aftermath where Capio was standing over the bike. The spokes and rim have been entirely detached from the hub. The hub is obviously still connected to the dropout of the frame, but the rim is just sort of dangling there because all the spokes have detached from the hub. And then cue the clickbait where it was referred to as a hookless failure causes Capio to you have an incident of some sort. And I mean, the tire is off the rim. There is an insert inside the tire. Those two things, let's say, are part of a trend when it does come to some high-profile hookless failures that we've seen in the past. But I mean, I wasn't there. I didn't see it. I've only got KDX's feedback to go on and what actually happened there. But I think, Dave, I sent you the image on a DM on Instagram and sort of like immediately said something like, "Here we go again." But this looks more like a spoke or hub failure than a hookless failure.
Despite the clickless headlines, it wasn't a hookless tire failure; it was a hookless hub failure.
It's a hookless hub failure. And it just really frustrated me. Like, we all know I'm not a fan of hookless personally, but these sorts of headlines and narratives don't really help anyone. I mean, I don't think it matters what type of rim you're riding, be it hooked or hookless. If it's clincher or tubeless and you have a failure like that, the chances are that the tire is going to come off. And the bigger question here is carbon spokes and what have become known as non-captive hubs, because again, from what we can see from the image, it looks like most of the spokes are still intact. You can't see all the spokes, but from what we can see, like the anchor point at the hub is still intact on most of the spokes. But presumably what happened is, he's ridden the cobbles, at racing speeds or close to it, as close to it as he could be while riding with a puncture. Probably has cracked the rim. That's maybe let a spoke go, and then once you get, in such a system, once you get one spoke that lets go, you lose all the tension and then all of a sudden all the spokes can work their way loose. And it's not a good look either way, but I think it was important just to say that this doesn't look like a hookless tire failure. I think it's, unless you're riding a tubular glued onto the rim, I think your tire's coming off regardless of what specific rim profile you have there. What's maybe most unfortunate for KDX in this example is that they announced new wheels last week, the Max 50s. They use KDX's sort of integrated hub and spoke manufacturing process, where chances are, had they been riding those wheels, this failure might not have happened in this way. I'm sure the rim would still have been destroyed, but because maybe you know better, Dave, but I'm thinking because you've got that sort of integrated hub and spoke system, you're not going to get one spoke coming off, and thus you're not going to get them all.
They're bonded together, aren't they?
Yeah.
So that'll keep them in place.
And I mean, getting on to the conversation we are about to get into, those new Max 50 wheels come on the new Giant Propel, which the team will be riding as of Strade Bianche and Paris-Nice this weekend. So again, like, had that launch been a week earlier, I mean, couldn't have known this, but had that launch of the new Propel been a week earlier, chances are this might not have happened, which I'm sure is probably eating up the people at KDX, because if you get a puncture on modern rims, it's not like the good old tubular days. You really just can't keep riding them anymore, and that's what he's done here, and it's caused this collapse.
Yeah, unfortunate for them, but yeah, things happen, and if you ride a wheel without air in it, chances are something's going to break. But anyway, let's. You mentioned that Propel. Let's talk about it. Is there a new Propel? Is it actually a new Propel, Ronan?
Technically speaking, yes.
Okay.
But it's practically indistinguishable from the existing Propel.
How do you know it's the new one? If someone's looking at it, what are the telltale signs that it is a new one?
Oh, someone will tell you.
Someone will tell you it's a new one.
No, there is, like, the seat tube interface is updated.
That's not helpful.
That's it. There is also like a slight change to how the fork crown, there used to be like a bridge onto the down tube, and that's gone. But
okay,
I mean, it is
the one tip I was given at TDU, because I kept having people tell me there was a new Propel at TDU, and look for the UDH. It now has a UDH. Is that true?
It does now have UDH.
Okay.
Which,
despite looking for a UDH, I did not see the new Propel at TDU.
You had told me that last week, and I'd asked, like, was there one of these at TD? And the consensus seemed to be that there wasn't. So you were maybe on
a wild goose chase. Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those that there's a new Propel, and then that story becomes there's a new Propel at Tour Down Under, which seemingly there wasn't, but I don't know. But I mean, like, despite that, we're not going to get into the claims here. We've got a broader discussion we're going to get into, but the bike looks practically identical, almost indistinguishable from the old one, and yet there's an 18-watt saving claim attached to the new bike. Not 18 watt faster, but 18 watts saved. So, I mean, that's obviously what I'm going to have to get into in my written article on the new bike. I don't know if you want to dig into it here or not, but yeah.
I think we can send people to the article for that info. But I guess, there a lot of that there, I assume some of it comes from the wheels, some of it comes from the handlebar, some of it comes from thin air, literally.
So this is the thing. Normally these sorts of claims really frustrate me. This one actually less so, believe it or not. And it's going to get absolutely ridiculed by most. But I actually, although I don't mind it, I don't think it's a great look for Giant, because the 18 watt saving comes from a mix of rolling resistance savings from new tires, aero claims around the new tires and wheels, marginal aero saving on the frame. I don't know where that's come from, but that's what they're claiming. But then the biggest chunk of it comes from the new handlebar on the new bike being much narrower than the stock handlebar on the old bike. And so when you compare the rider position, and they have a pedaling mannequin that they can now adjust the rider's shoulder width and those sorts of things in, when you test rider position on the old wider setup versus the new narrower setup, there is a significant aero saving there. And you're nodding your head, I'm rolling my eyes, everybody's thinking, what the fuck? But I'm actually, the reason that I'm kind of okay with it is because in some ways it's kind of Giant admitting we're making bikes for consumers who walk into a shop and buy a complete bike. And if you're the kind of person who had a Propel and optimized it yourself with aftermarket parts anyway, or changed out handlebars,
like all
and that
of
sort
their
of thing,
team riders,
like all of their team riders, there isn't really an aero saving there.
Right.
But if you're someone who walks in off the street and rides the stock bike that you buy without changing anything, then there potentially is a saving. And that's, I don't think that's a great look, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to argue with that being a thing. If before you were putting on a rider on a 42 and now you're putting them on a 36.
Yep.
I just think that, it highlights misaligned incentives in terms of what they were aiming for with that new bike. And, they set a target of, I think it was 5% faster or something like that. And I was like, yeah, but if you actually test it, with the optimal configuration on both bikes, you haven't met that target. And they're like, no, but we have met that target. And I was like, well, if you just view it through the lens that I'm viewing it through for a second, you might have then found yourself needing to actually update the frame and actually bring, a bike that looks different to hit the target you had targeted. But you've kind of found a workaround to get it.
This show is supported by Blue Land. Living a cleaner and more sustainable lifestyle by reducing single-use plastics is a small action that makes a big difference. And Blue Land is on a mission to make it easy for everyone to make those sustainable choices. They believe that hardworking, clean products can be the norm, not the exception, so that you can do better for your family and the planet at the same time. From cleaning sprays and toilet bowl cleaner to dishwasher and laundry detergent tablets, Blue Land's 100% microplastic-free, EPA Safer Choice certified formulas are safe to use around people, pets, and plants. You'll love not having to choose between the safe option and what actually gets your house clean. Blue Land products are independently tested to perform alongside major brands, and the formulas are free from dyes, parabens, and harsh chemicals. Plus, Blue Land is a certified B Corp and certified cruelty-free by Leaping Bunny. Their formulas are EPA Safer Choice certified, and many have received the Gold Material Health Certificate from Cradle to Cradle. And right now, Blue Land has a special offer for listeners. Get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/PRX. You won't want to miss this. blueland.com/PRX for 15% off. That's blueland.com/PRX to get 15% off.
Taking care of your eyes shouldn't be a hassle. That's why Warby Parker is a one-stop shop for all your vision needs. Our prescription glasses and sunglasses are expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Stop by a nearby store or use our app to virtually try on frames and get personalized recommendations. Did we mention we offer eye exams and take vision insurance too? For everything you need to see, head to your nearest Warby Parker store or visit warbyparker.com today. That's warbyparker.com.
All right, well, we're going to come back to that because there's something I want to know from you about that. But I'm going to introduce the bike that Alex has also been writing about and spent some time riding, which is, to me, a similar story, but maybe it's pushed the boundary a little bit further. Merida Reacto. What is it, the 5th generation now?
5th generation. Which took me by surprise because I think I might be getting this slightly wrong, but I think the bike launched originally in 2010. And we're on the 5th generation, but it's taken 6 years for this generation to come out. So they must have been knocking Reactos out left, right, and centre for the first few years.
There were a few for a while there, but yeah, I don't know. We went through the rim brake and disc brake generations for a while there, so that might have sped things along a little bit. But yeah, what do they change for this one? What are the big headline news bits?
It's actually it is a significant overhaul for the Reacto. I think, it was back at the Tour de France. Ronan spotted the bike being used under Bahrain Victorious, who are obviously now no longer with Merida. But it's definitely a more aggressive and visibly more aero-optimized bike. And one of the targets for brands set about with this update is they wanted it to test in Tour Magazine's aero protocol at under 200 watts. Which
Shoot me now.
Which, whether that's a good test protocol or not to be using is a completely separate discussion. But based on that, it would put it as one of the top 5 bikes. And for reference, I think the current Cervelo S5 is around 202 watts in that test. So it's a slippery bike based on that testing. But also they wanted to make it as close to the UCI weight limit as possible. So actually one of the configurations with some slightly shallower wheels and TT tires, they showed me it did hit 6.8 kilos. It was like 6.75 without pedals. But for a bike that is aero looking and has as much carbon on it as that bike does, it's impressive to see it come that close to the minimum weight limit.
Yep. Yeah, so they've got a few different builds on option like that. I know the fastest one that does sneak in under that 200 watts on the tour test, that's not really the configuration that most people would buy. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. So the Reacto doesn't have one flagship model. They've kind of got 3 different flagship models that are tailored to different people. So you've got the Reacto 1, which is very confusing because it's the 5th generation Reacto, and then they've called it the 1. But that one is the one with the rotor aero crank and the classified hub, and an in-house cockpit, which we'll talk about more in a second anyway. But yeah, that's one that comes in at 196 watts, I think it is. And that's a little bit heavier than the other top spec bikes. I think that's 7.2, 7.3 kilos. But then they do a more traditional one with just a 2x SRAM red. And also they do a team edition, which is kind of ironic because it's in the build of a team they no longer support. So that's with the Vision cockpit and Dura-Race. Just all the things that you would expect from the Bahrain team to be using.
The 6.75 is remarkable because there is a lot of surface area to this new Merida frame. And one of the things that I thought was most interesting about the Propel was that in my medium large size, it was 6.7 without pedals. And it hasn't got as much surface area. And if we equate surface area to aeroness for the purposes of this conversation, one starts to look a lot more impressive than the other. But it gets me to wondering, what's the ride like on the Merida if it's that light and that chunky?
Right. So
what have they sacrificed?
This took a little bit of self-discovery because obviously the roads of Valencia were chosen for a very specific reason of they're awfully smooth and really nice. And we even found some roads that had been just freshly laid. So on those roads, it rides as you'd expect. For unfortunately, not for them, no. For the WorldTour. But yeah, on those roads, obviously, it comes with, depending on which top spec build it is, either 28 or 30 mil tyres. It's not going to ride bad on those road conditions. But on one of the days I did head out on a ride that it definitely incorporated more gravel than Merida probably would have liked me to take their bike on. I did find that once the road becomes broken, it is I wouldn't say jarring, but you definitely find that the tyres are the only thing really giving you any level of comfort on that bike. It is very stiff, and there's only so much that even a 30mm tyre can do when you're on a pretty poor road. So, yeah, it's definitely not, although, the Reacto 4 won Roubaix in 2020, I think it was. It's not a bike I would go and reach for if my local roads were pretty poor. It's definitely a bike that is better suited to somewhere where you have nice, smooth tarmac.
I was expecting you to say it was lacking stiffness there. Just knowing those tube profiles, you have to. The stiffness usually comes from just more material. And more material doesn't help you hit 6.75.
What's interesting is basically all the weight savings they've made in the chassis haven't come from the frame or fork. I think with the frame or fork, they've saved, I think it's 8 grams in total. Another 110, 115 grams comes from just like a refinement of pretty much all of it comes from a refinement of the seat post. So
how much of it was saved through reducing the size of the down tube decal?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
But yeah, essentially, I've just massively slimmed down the seat post because they've moved the Di2 battery integration to the bottom of the seat tube. So there's an access panel behind the bottom bracket. Battery now lives in there. And that's just allowed them to cut an awful lot of size and therefore weight from the seat post. So yeah, over 100 grams of the weight saving we're seeing from a chassis isn't actually the frame. It's the finishing hardware they're using.
And yeah, you mentioned there's a new handlebar, which if I'm not mistaken is kind of the first time Merida's done that, where they've done their own in-house handlebar. They've always previously partnered with FSA. What's the storyline here? Because I mean, I've read your story on Escape, so I'm going to give it away. But if I read correctly, that handlebar is one of the reasons why things were so delayed.
Yeah, out of all of the times to decide you're going to make your own cockpit, the period of 2020 to 2026 is probably not the best period to have done that. So essentially, the project was pretty much derailed, especially after the announcements last year by the UCI enforcing the minimum bar width regulations, because Merida had gone very aggressive in their cockpit to the point where I think the hood-to-hood measurement on the cockpit designed was like 230, 240 millimeters, which was never going to meet the UCI regulations. But it just meant that they were forced to, especially at the time, they still had Bahrain Victorious as a team they were supporting. They were forced to basically redesign the entire cockpit to make it UCI compliant. And yeah, I think that's why one of the main reasons we've seen such a big gap between Ronan spotting it at the tour last year and it actually being released now in March the following year is, yeah, it was actually quite an involved process to redesign a UCI compliant cockpit. And also because Merida, for reasons Merida aren't necessarily that happy with, they aren't members of the WFSGI. So they're kind of finding out the rule changes and the regulation updates as we do. For a while in the summer, there was that period where there was a lot of lobbying going on to whether the regulations were going to be upheld or whether they were going to be changed or modified or just forgotten all about together. For Merida, it was too risky to do anything really until those regulations had been solidified because, you know, there's a risk they could update it and still update it the wrong side of regulations or update it and end up with a cockpit that wasn't optimized to the level it could have been.
Does it strike you as odd that they're not on that board or on that committee, given that they're one of the largest bicycle manufacturers in the world, a public traded company in Taiwan, one of the biggest? Yeah, I don't know. It surprised me that it sounded like reading your piece, it sounded like they'd elected to not be on the committee.
So from my understanding, I think a lot of people, especially in the engineering side of the team at Merida, would like to be part of the WFSGI. I feel like it's a decision beyond Merida itself. It's more the people that own Merida as a brand that have made that decision not to, and I think it's mostly because of paying to be part of that organization.
Fair enough. Yep, got to pay for your seat.
If it's any consolation to them, it seems like the WFSGI can do great work, and then the UCI can turn around and do what they want anyway. So
there has been proof of that. Yes,
there might not have been any benefit to having a heads up.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about where these bikes come together. Which is, for me, if both of these aero bikes, perhaps one more aero than the other, if both of these aero bikes can hit the UCI 6.8 kilo weight limit, both of these brands also offer lightweight models competing with these aero bikes. Giant has the TCR, Merida has the Sculptura in range. how do these all fit together?
This is why it does not make sense to me what Propel or what Giant have done with such a minor update to the Propel, because with the TCR they announced 2 or 3 years ago now, they had to make that slightly more aero, they said, to meet market demand, but still keeping a focus on making it a lightweight, great bike to ride, and especially on climbs. And now with the Propel, they've said that they've had to make it lighter. Perhaps I'm misremembering here, but I'm pretty sure like part of the reasoning was our pros want lighter bikes, and the pros will only ride the Propel going forward now. But you've effectively brought both bikes closer together, rather than differentiating them further. And that's, again, the part that I can't understand is like, pro racing is so fast these days. The demands are changing all the time. There seems to be a resurgence in terms of dedicated aero bikes. The opportunity was definitely there with the existing Propel platform to find more aeroness, for lack of a better term, from the frame and fork. But they've opted not to do that at all. Instead, chasing or deciding to make it lighter.
They've made an all-rounder, not an aero bike.
And that was like within about 5 minutes of the presentation last week, maybe even sooner. I had jotted down a note on my notepad. I was like, because they referred to the Propel as their aero bike, and I had jotted down, is this an aero bike or is this an all-rounder? Sort of rhetorical question. But fast forward to the end of the presentation, and the Giant representative had said, like, the new Propel transcends aero bikes and is now an all-rounder. And I was like, well, there we go. And I sound like a broken record at this point, but I just don't think, especially when you have the two bikes within your lineup, I think you really need to differentiate them further and just make it even in terms of a customer walking into the shop and seeing bikes in the shop floor, whether it's right or wrong or for better or worse, I think the aero stuff just sells itself, whereas the TCR stuff, and that arguably, and for a lot of scenarios, a better bike for the majority of people, but you have to explain why it's good. You have to explain geometry and ride feel and stiffness and compliance and how you balance all those things and why that is such a nice bike to ride. You just look at a fucking S5 or a Factor 1 or a Y1 RS and it walks itself out the shop door.
Yeah. Is this the death of the TCR then? Is this, because in my mind, like the Propel and the TCR and a Venn diagram of racing bikes are now just a circle. So, like,
no, I mean, like, I do still think a Propel will be potentially more aero solution if you can get your foot and all that right, than a TCR, and so the TCR will be dropped from the Jacob Alula lineup, I would imagine.
Sure.
But I get the sense that if Giant is planning anything with the TCR, it's to the next iteration. It's not going away, and the next iteration will be, can we make this slightly more aero and slightly lighter, which will narrow the gap even further.
It will, yeah. And I mean, historically, the TCR has been their best-selling road bike in recent years. I mean, it's a hugely popular platform for them, but it does feel odd to have the Propel step so even more closely, like it was stepping already quite closely towards the TCR, but they had the opportunity to create some divide and some breathing room between them, and they just brought them closer together. So
I mean, the obvious question is, will they do something like an Athos or something? I don't know how Specialized made such a success of the Athos. And I do. really don't know if Giant could...
They did it at the time when everyone was scared of internal cable routing and through headset cable routing and hadn't quite come to terms with it, and they bucked the trend and sold a boatload of bikes.
But I mean, TCR did the same at the same time.
Yes, and I think the TCR didn't. I think if the TCR had round tubes, people would have probably bought it for the most ridiculous reasons. But I think the latest ASOS, I think that time for that bike to shine is probably past now. I can't imagine that bike selling like it once did.
And the point is more like, I don't think that is an option for Giant with the TCR going forward. I think they're locked into that all-rounder sort of approach, which again begs the question, well, why not just... the Propel for the first 2 or 3 generations of it, from starting in 20...
It was radical.
Yeah, it was. And now it's tame.
Yeah.
In comparison.
Yeah.
And it's not that Giant don't have the expertise or the ability. Another point I want to bring up, I do think there's just too much weight put on pro rider feedback. And so, as we've seen with the Cannondale Super 6, and now with the new Propel, there are effectively zero changes to the geometry in the Propel. Same with the Merida, Alex. You're nodding your head there. And I think that stems from when you ask the pro riders what they want. They want the geometry to stay the same, and they want it to be slightly lighter. And that you compare that to the approach that I have laid out that Tudor Pro Cycling and BMC are taking in that 3-part series that we just published the final part of. They're really taking an engineering-led approach to figuring out, well, what is going to actually deliver performance. And as I mentioned in that article, it was only at the end of a 3-part series and some 15,000 words in that I even found a way to mention Fabian Cancellara, because and the mention for him was actually just highlighting the fact that he hadn't been mentioned throughout. And I thought that was sort of insightful in terms of they're not rolling out the celebrity star to validate a new product in some way. It's like, right, we have our engineering team. They have looked at this. They have figured out what is actually going to deliver performance. And then they've worked in ways and integrating that. And I'm just not seeing that from other bike brands.
No, Alex, I mean, that's something you had in your piece with the Merida, right? Like, it's the same story as far as them taking on feedback.
I think the Merida is kind of a real clear case study on why pro feedback does need to be taken with a pinch of salt. Because, you ask the engineering team, you ask basically anyone that was on the ground at the Merida launch for Merida, whether they wanted to change the geometry for the Reacto 5, and it was overwhelmingly yes. And it's something they're already thinking about wanting to do for Reacto 6 whenever that comes into production. But essentially, it was kind of vetoed by the pro riders on Bahrain, saying we didn't want any changes from the Reacto and we didn't want any changes from the Sculptura. And that basically overruled the decision to do any updates to the geometry. As we all know the story with Merida and Bahrain, Merida are the ones feeling the effects of this because Bahrain dropped them and moved to Bianchi anyway. So the changes that weren't made that they knew they wanted to make didn't get made for a team that now isn't even racing the bike. So it does just show that there does need to be some balance between pro feedback and engineering-led development.
I just think if you took an engineering-led approach with the Propel here, you would not end up with what you have. So either, and probably actually more accurately, a combination of what's going to perform well in the market and what the pro riders want, and mashing those two together.
Which is a theme. And I have to question how much of this conservative kind of approach to model updates. We saw the exact same with the Cannondale Super 6 Evo, very conservative update. I wonder how much of it is that the market, many markets in road cycling at the moment and in the bicycle industry are struggling, brands are struggling, and that everyone's just scared to take a risk at the moment because like every model needs to sell right now. And I guess none of the brands have quite the cash flow or maybe the freedom to take chances as they once did. I really question whether that's all we're seeing right now.
I find myself wondering about that all the time as well. And what I can't figure out, because I don't have insights into their sales or anything, but and chances are Giant, Cannondale, there's been another very, very minor update from another brand of late that's escaping me right now, but they probably won't know the answer to this question until 3 years from now as well. But which is going to sell better? A bike that is indistinguishable from the previous generation, or a bike that is clearly an upgrade? And, Dave, we talked about it last week or the week before when we somehow ended up chatting about mobile phones, but it frustrates me also because it just feels like it feels needless in that there isn't really a genuine upgrade in terms of performance that you can point to here. But at the same time, it's like all the R&D work, all the development work, all the cost of opening molds, all the cost of everything it takes to launch a new bike, and then it launches and I don't know, it just feels underwhelming when you can't really tell it apart from the previous one.
Absolutely.
I mean, the opposite side of the argument, to add some balance here, is that we've already so highly refined this platform that any upgrades from this point onwards are going to be marginal. They're going to be minor. They're subtle improvements. They're not radical overhauls, which is a valid argument. in some cases as well.
I kind of am left feeling like these brands have multiple models, have the model you don't take chances with, and then have the model you do take chances with.
But this gets to the problem of the win on Sunday, buy on Monday model that the bike industry still relies on, because that should work, Dave. What you just explained should be what happens. But partly because of that win on Sunday approach, and partly because of UCI commercialization rules, and partly because of a whole host of reasons, the bikes that the pros ride onto our TV screens tend to be the ones that sell best in a lot of markets. And I don't know how you fix that. I don't know how you get the bike that would be better for the consumer, or a consumer specifically developed bike, to sell well when the pros aren't riding it.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, we've got perfect examples happening right now. Is like Colnago is actually selling a bunch of Y1Ss to people that's a bad bike for, and Cervelo is selling a bunch of S5s to people that probably are better served by an R5, or even a Caledonia, and yeah, I think that's end of the day. I mean, people are going to buy, as you said, like the racing.
And I guess the most frustrating part about it as well, and again, apologies for highlighting issues and not providing solutions, but the people, the riders who race, and there are quite a lot of elite level riders who are amateur. They're not on pro teams. They race week in, week out, and they want a good race bike. But the way the pricing is going means that even the riders for whom those bikes are perfect aren't accessible because of the pricing. And I don't know if it's late stage capitalism or what it is, but there's no clear solution in sight, I don't think.
Alex, what was the story with Merida as far as like, did you get any insight from them about what's actually selling in the market?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously, like, they have the Reacto and Sculptura that are both at the minute, or have been pro raced bikes. Obviously, I think the update to the Reacto is just completely makes the Sculptura redundant for pro racing. But yeah, Merida was saying that as far as consumer markets go, it's pretty much a 50-50 split between the current Reacto and the Sculptura as to what people are buying. So it's quite interesting to see there's so much appetite there for the Sculptura.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know for Giant. I haven't heard any stats, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar numbers for Giant as well, just given the popularity of that TCR amongst the consumers.
Both are very popular around here, Propel and TCR.
Yeah, if it was for my rider preference and just what I do on a bike these days, if it was the 4th generation Reacto or the Sculptura, I'd probably pick the Sculptura myself. I just prefer the aesthetic of it, and also almost certainly rides slightly better. So for me, I'm not pinning numbers on anymore. So I enjoy that side of a bike more than whether it's a little bit faster.
Yeah, I'm the exact same headspace. I'd pick ride quality over outright aero, which is a disaster in Ronan's mind. So
you're both wrong. You're both so wrong.
I know.
I mean, it gets back to my earlier comment. Like, if I'm racing, I want an aero bike, and
you are racing.
Yeah, I am racing
and winning.
And winning, yes. And I chose an aero bike, and the Propel, the Super 6, the SL8, those bikes don't do enough in my mind. And with the caveat that roughly speaking, the bike is about 20% of the total system drag. The rider accounts for 80% on top of it, and that's why, not to go down that rabbit hole again, but that's why being able to get your fit is so important in these things. And even within that 20% for the bike, the frame maybe only accounts for 5%, and so we're talking small differences here. But yeah, I still think would choose the TCR or a Sculptura or something like that, or the SL8 if I wasn't racing. So I can appreciate both types of bikes, is I think my point.
All right. Well, yeah, I don't think we really solved anything there, but I think it's probably worth noting that we're, as a collective, probably just as confused by some of these decisions around how bikes are being updated and how they're being brought in nearer to each other as models rather than split further apart. Is that a good summary of what we've just spoken about? That we want brands to sort of take a bit more chances when they've got multiple models and not just converge their models together?
Yeah, and I want to just bring up the sort of the misaligned incentives that I referenced earlier as well, because as we keep demanding things to be lighter, to pick one example, I do think that's then what leads to, we do see there is an increased number of high profile failures, be it wheels or tires or whatever else these days. And I think a lot of that is stemming from the sort of the demand for, I want aero and I want light, or I want carbon spokes and the wheel has to be 1,000 grams or under, and something has to give somewhere. We're not using space grade carbon fiber here, so it's not like they're just using a new carbon and somehow making it lighter. There are other things like some of the carbon spokes that are used, some of the hub designs that are used, some of the other choices that are made to shave grams, that ultimately, like, unless you are, I'm trying to think of a Jayco climber, but unless you're a Grand Tour contender racing up the Alps or the Pyrenees, these things just don't really, the weight saving doesn't have a performance benefit. It probably does feel better beneath you, and if, like, as I think I'll include in my Propel article, like, one ride around a car park would probably be enough to sell you on this bike. You can feel how snappy and reactive it is and how stiff it is, and it certainly feels fast under you. But yeah, I'm just concerned, like, the more we chase down these avenues that don't deliver performance, the more we ignore the ones that do, and the more we introduce these unintended consequences.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm going to send people to check out escapecollective.com because we've got write-ups on almost everything we've spoken about so far. But yeah, we've got write-ups on these two bikes. You were both at the launches of each of them. And so, yeah, I think there's some good information shared there, insight from the people that designed these bikes, and some ride impressions for both of them as well. So head on over there to check it out.
Am I the baddie here?
Are you the baddie?
The thing I just keep coming back to is, if we're sold it as a race bike, you need to be delivering performance. Getting back to our earlier comment that potentially most of the people buying the new Propel won't be racing it. You could then argue that the decisions they've made are fine, because when you get on that bike, every single time you get on the Propel, it's going to feel like this is a good bike. And so you could argue like that's right. But again, the thing that grates me is just like having the cake and eating it, promising performance, but not actually delivering it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would think that every brand is still striving to make a faster bike, and that Giant would truly believe that they have made a competitive bike here, even though your thoughts, or I guess, comparing it directly to other bikes, you're like, I feel like there's some things left on the table here. But I think if you were to ask the brands, they would all swear blind that they have gone into their great efforts to make a bike as competitive as possible for the athletes that they pay a lot of money for. But yeah, I don't know. I do feel like just some brands are pushing the envelope more than others. Pushing the envelope, is that a saying?
I feel like it is.
I feel like I just made that up. Anyway, all right, let's move on.
You have me questioning the pushing. Is it pushing the envelope? It's something the envelope. I think it's pushing the envelope.
Alex?
If it wasn't a saying, it is now. I was born in a time, I haven't seen an envelope. I don't know what one is.
Yeah, pushing the envelopes to go beyond the usual or normal limits by doing something new.
The cliche works. All right, let's move on.
I mean, the end of that is doing something new, dangerous, etc. So I'm not sure.
Yes.
Not sure that's what we want either.
All right. Well, yeah, plenty to take in there. Check out all the write-ups that we've got. Plenty of thought and time put into those. All right. Before we wrap up, I've got a good thing. We haven't had too many good things lately. Let's have a good thing. And this is closely related to the new Giant Propel and Merida Reacto, and it is a flat pedal adapter for your SPD pedals.
Yeah. I mean, we also had a good thing last week, but anyway, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, this thing's just came out. It's from, I can even show it to you, show and tell. No one else can see that. But yeah, it's the Redshift Sports, probably best known for their suspension stems. They've come out with a thing called the Mousetrap, and it's a flat pedal adapter for an SPD pedal, which has absolutely been done before as an idea numerous times, has failed for decades. I think they've actually got it right, and that's why it's a good thing. Is that it's a molded nylon plastic, glass reinforced. Feels really tough. Feels almost like metal. How dense it is, but it's they've got like a cam mechanism in it that actually opens and closes the fake SPD cleat. So you sort of open it up and then you shut it into the pedal, and it locks itself in. So it's like one-handed. You can install it in a pedal, and really compact, quite grippy, and yeah, it sort of turns whatever bike you've got clipless pedals on into a little town commuter. So I'm just going to show them. Everyone else might be able to hear how it works. But there you go. It's open and then closed. But yeah, it's just quite nice. They snap together magnetically for safe storage. But I just think it's a cool product because for years and years I've seen similar iterations come and go in the market and thought they're always stupid because you have to force them into place and then sometimes use tools to get them out of the pedal. And this one, literally one-handed.
Is it still a clipless pedal if it's now got such
Was
a mechanism?
Was it ever a clipless pedal? That word is just confusing.
Yeah. It reminds me, Dave, of I'm pretty sure I still have them, the Speedplay adapters. You could turn a Speedplay into a flat pedal, and it was like, again, two plastic slides that sort of enveloped the pedal, and then there was like a little closure mechanism that you slid in or slid out, and something tells me that it was like a toolless design in theory, but it was usually so tight that you maybe had to use a tool to force out the clip. But
that was always my issue with them. Like you always got stuck with the flat pedal bit being in the bike when you didn't want it there. So, but yeah, this thing,
you didn't have a tool for that, Dave. Come on,
didn't have it. I mean, I always do, but it's I don't know. It's just a cool product. If you ever if you ever want flat pedals on your SPD bike, I think this is genuinely a really nice option for like around town usage and getting more use out of your bike. And the exciting thing is at the end of this year, they've teased that they're going to have versions for like Crank Brothers and for SPD SL, and I think it was Look Keo as well as they teased.
Oh, wow.
So some more things coming. But yeah, it's a cool product. Well done, Redshift. All right, well, I think that's a pretty good place to wrap it up and to head to our members-only section for Ask a Wrench with Zach Edwards, where we answer your questions. Alex, Ronan, good to see you. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you. Until next time.
Until next time. Hopefully we don't have 12 product releases happen all within 3 days of each other next week. Well, let's head on over to Ask a Wrench. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. And if you haven't already, and you like what we do, please consider leaving a review. Head on over to the free feeds of our podcast on Spotify or Apple and leave a review. It helps other like-minded geeks find what we're talking about, what we're doing, and usually a lot less news. Send them a different episode. All right. Thanks, guys. Cheers.